This sucks. What's going on, everybody, and welcome to my review for Happy Gilmore 2. Now, I say this as a review, but this isn't going to be like one of my typical movie reviews. This is going to feel more like a funeral for all things comedy because, as you see over my shoulder right here, there's a tombstone that reads "Rest in Peace Comedy," because that is how I am feeling after watching this abomination of a comedy movie. Just to add some context here, I am a massive fan of the first Happy Gilmore film. It is by far my all-time favorite Adam Sandler movie, and it's probably either close to or in my top 5 favorite comedies of all time in general. But that doesn't mean that I necessarily had any high hopes or expectations for this sequel. These long-awaited comedy sequels have a very poor track record, and so I didn't really even expect this movie to be good, let alone live up to that first film. But there was a small part of me that hoped that maybe they could do some things to recapture the magic a little bit and give me something at least reminiscent of the experience that I get with that first film. But once the first wave of reactions started to come out, I began to get very concerned for this movie because I was either seeing people completely crap on it and heavily pin it, or any of the positive reviews I was seeing, they were coming from like celebrity types that sounded like they were being paid to positively review this movie. So I just assumed that the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. It's probably not as fantastic as some of these endorsements would claim it is, but it's also probably not as bad as some of these other people are making it out to be. Well,
it's worse. It's so much worse.
I didn't think that I would see another movie this year that could possibly piss me off to the amount that Fear Street Prom Queen did. I thought that movie was going to easily be taking home my pick for worst movie of the year. But Happy Gilmore 2 has very quickly and easily ripped that crown away from them. And not only am I feeling like it's going to be a shoo-in for my pick for worst of the year, as of this moment, this is one of the worst movies, period, that I have ever seen. This is a shockingly bad sequel, so I'm not going to do my typical format reviews where I give you the positives and then the mix and then the negatives. We're just going to jump straight to the negatives because I really only have one positive thing to say about this movie, and that is Christopher McDonald as Shooter McGavin. I think he was the only one in this movie that ever actually got a genuine laugh out of me, and I liked what they did with his character for this sequel. But outside of him, there's not a single thing I can point to in the entirety of this film that I would give a thumbs up on. So let's talk about the story here first. We are a couple decades removed from the events of the first film. Happy is a broken down, alcoholic single father of 4. He no longer plays professional golf. He works at a grocery store just to get by and make ends meet. And he has blown through the entirety of his career earnings, but he has a very talented daughter who he wants to send to a ballet school in France. So he decides to, in order to make enough money to send her, he is going to get back in the golf game and blow the dust off of his golf clubs. So at its core, it's essentially a rehash of the plot from the first film. Instead of needing to raise money to save grandma's house, he needs to raise money to send his daughter to ballet school. And instead of learning golf, he needs to relearn golf. It's pretty simple and straightforward, which is fine. I wasn't expecting to get some intricate, deep, thought-provoking plot from this movie, and that's not even necessarily what I really wanted. But just because it is a simple story, that does not mean that they are just absolved of all of the issues and mistakes that they make around that central plot line. Almost immediately within the first 5 minutes of this movie, they make a very bold choice. And the second that this moment takes place, I audibly gasped the words, "Oh no," because I immediately was not on board with the direction they were going. And I really hoped it was like a dream sequence or something, but no, it's a choice that they made. And I was very nervous for where the movie was going to go from this point forward. And then what is done with the character of Happy here is such a tired trope at this point. I don't know what Hollywood's obsession is with taking these heroes from our past and dissecting them and breaking them down and making them miserable old men. It happens time and time again. Disney is one of the biggest offenders in regards to this in terms of like Lightyear and Indiana Jones. They love doing that, but it's not just a Disney thing. All of Hollywood seems to be really riding this wave as of late, and I'm so tired of it. We don't have to take every character that we love and turn them into broken down, miserable old men. I'm just tired of seeing it, and shows up in this movie once again, and it's not a version of Happy Gilmore that I ever wanted to see. In all honesty, talking about and breaking down the story of this movie feels like a waste of time because it's not even the biggest sin that this sequel commits. The just script in general and as a whole is just bafflingly stupid, and I really can't comprehend the decisions that were made and how they made this movie. So much of this film is flashbacks to the first movie, and it's so offensive almost that they don't trust us enough that we have watched the first movie, remember the first movie, and will get the references they are making in the sequel to the first movie, because the second that they make a little inside joke or a callback or a reference to that first movie, they not only make the joke, they also just show us the joke in the first movie. And that is kind of like a slap in the face as a fan. I will get your joke. I'm not stupid. You don't have to hold my hand and walk me to it and ask me, do you remember when we said that in this movie? But look, it's all these years later and we're saying it again. Isn't it still funny? Yeah, maybe it could have been funny if you didn't cram the original scene down my throat and not just trust me that I will get what you are saying. I think flashbacks alone make up like 15 to 20% of this movie's entire runtime, and that's just an unacceptable amount. But you very quickly realize why that is the case, because outside of jokes that we've already heard in the first movie, this one really doesn't have anything to offer on the comedy front. There's really one running gag throughout the entire movie that they keep hitting us with, and it's where Happy hides his alcohol and the things that he puts it in so he can drink it discreetly. And I'll be honest, I laughed the first time they did it. I thought it was a pretty good joke or whatever, but they just keep hitting you over the head with it. It happens like 20 plus times, and it was only funny the first time. It's a comedy movie. You got to give me some new material. Yes, am I here for a similar experience to the first film? Yes, but I don't want a carbon fucking copy. Give me something new. But it was just very painfully obvious that they just had nothing to offer, and they did not know how to make anybody laugh other than to just recycle jokes they know that we already like. This movie has the most barf-inducing usage of cameos that I have ever seen in my entire life. You name a celebrity and they are probably in this movie. They take the term cameo fest to a whole other level. The MCU could never dream of doing the kind of things that Happy Gilmore 2 does. They got actors, musicians, athletes, professional wrestlers. You could throw a rock and hit a celebrity that is in this movie. So much so to the point that it feels like the cameos are really the main character of this movie. And it's to the point where Adam Sandler himself feels like a tour guide within his own movie. It feels like his purpose is just to walk us from scene to scene to bring us to the next cameo and to see what they have to offer, which, by the way, is not much. There are probably only 1 to 2 cameos at max in this movie that I think offer anything of substance to the entire package. When the credits rolled on this, I was left asking myself why. Why did they make this movie this way? Why the over-reliance on cameos and flashbacks and only hammering the same one joke over and over again? And I think the simple answer to that question is that these are all tools of distraction. It's to distract you from the fact that this was a very hollow script that had nothing to offer. No new jokes, no new material, no new characters, no new stories, nothing. They could not formulate an original thought out of their collective brains. And I think this movie epitomizes everything that is wrong with comedy and film in today's day and age. It feels like pure comedy movies have been almost completely eradicated from the film industry, and I think the Adam Sandler Netflix era is a prime example of what you get when that happens, because ever since he teamed up with Netflix, we have gotten some of the most soulless, edgeless, creatively bankrupt comedies of my entire lifetime. And it is such a shame to see how the mighty have fallen, because growing up, Adam Sandler was delivering banger after banger with the likes of Waterboy, Big Daddy, Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, even like a movie like Click. That's a movie a little bit later in his prime that I got a lot of enjoyment out of. And it's so disappointing to see the level of quality or lack of quality within the output that he gives us today. Comedy is meant to push the envelope. You are supposed to take risk when you are operating within the genre. And with that, you are going to step on some people's toes and piss some people off. That's just the nature of the beast when it comes to comedy. But if you are so afraid to come anywhere close to doing any of those things, then these are the kind of movies you get. And the more of these movies that come out and the worse that they do at box office or streaming numbers, even though I'm sure a lot of people are going to watch this movie, but the reception is probably not going to be there, then we just get more and more sanitization. And eventually we're going to get to a point where comedy movies just aren't going to exist anymore, and they will only be subgenres to bigger genres. Because right now I'm finding the best comedy movies that I see these days are horror movies, and that shouldn't be the case. The best comedy movies should be comedy movies. I shouldn't be getting the funnier movies of the year from other genres. But that has been the case for pretty much the last decade or so, and I'm tired of seeing it. I want comedy to become comedy again. And some people are going to say that, oh, this is a me problem. I just don't have a good sense of humor. You need to learn to laugh and enjoy movies again, blah, 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 blah. I think that's a half-assed way to view things. I think, no one wanted this movie to be funnier than I did. I love the first Happy Gilmore. No one wanted to see this movie do well more than me. But like, you can't just tell me the same joke over and over and over and over again and expect me to laugh more and more each time. That's just not how it works. But that's how this movie felt. And I just can't understand how this movie was fumbled as hard as it is. And so like, for you guys, I can't recommend you watch this movie at all. I'm sure you will if you are a fan of the original, and maybe you will find some way to get some entertainment out of it. Comedy is subjective. But for me, this movie is a result of all of the issues that I've had with comedy over the last decade. And so I for sure cannot recommend that you check this movie out. It's 100% probably going to take home my pick for worst movie of the year. I can't possibly see this getting topped. Just an abomination of a comedy movie, and I'm so incredibly disappointed that these are my feelings for this movie, because like I said, I wanted to like this movie so much, but I can't bring myself to do it. But those are all of my thoughts for Happy Gilmore 2. Let me know what you guys thought about this movie. Were you actually able to find some level of enjoyment out of it, or were you just like me and hated every single second about it? I would love to read what you guys have to say down in the comments below. Make sure to also give this video a like and subscribe to the channel as well for more movie reviews, and I will see you all in my next one. Peace.